All right, Mech Warrior, I want you to do your best not to be tempted to run off for personal tabletop glory. Stick with the lance, stick with the group. This is what we're going to explore in this Battletech vlog. I've been pushing up some mech reviews, and certainly we're going to jump back to that in the community post. I asked the team, what should we be looking at? What mechs should we be exploring? Now, this is a dangerous place to be, because in doing so, if I don't have those mechs in my collection, I'm like, hey, recently we were looking at the Thug. I'm like, this is a solid machine. I think I need a Thug in the list. Always a very dangerous place to be as a miniature wargamer with zero impulse control. So we were looking at some mechs, hopefully giving you some new ideas to explore or add to your collection. Now we got to balance it out with kind of like some Mech Warrior 101, because this is truly the golden age of Battletech. There are so many returning players. There are so many new players coming to the game, and of course with the full support of the game of Armored Combat, miniatures, 3D printing, there's a lot out there. So we want to get you hitting the table winning. Battletech works as a lance. In the narrative, the idea is 4 mechs, and it could be a light, a medium, 2 heavies. It could be an assault lance of 4 heavies. It could be a recon lance. Lots of different ways to compose. But generally speaking, it's 4 mechs working in a group, complementing each other. Now, how does that play on the tabletop? Well, formally, you could stick to that as the narrative. But based on the battle value, you could play with 3 mechs. You could play with 6 mechs. You could play with 5 mechs to utilize it. So when I say a lance for the sake of this vlog, we're talking about a battle group. Or maybe I should just call it a battle group, or a collection of mechs. This idea, though, if you can visualize the hex map, put down 4 mechs. So 4 mechs in your collection right now, put them in a straight line, 1 hex, straight line, 1 hex in between them. This working together, now imagine the weapon systems. So let's say I have a mech on the left and a mech on the right, PPC, autocannon 10, maybe a Centurion and a Battlemaster. I'm pulling these mechs out first I can think of. So, well, Centurion, autocannon 5 or 10? I can't believe this. Let's just say it has the autocannon 10, or we're going to pull out a mech with an AC 10. Those 2 mechs overlap. If I can project out and count out the range, and if I can take into account the firing arc, if there is a target down on the table within range, both of those mechs will be able to fire at it. Likewise, let's say there's a grasshopper in the group, and there's an archer in the group. Archer lifts up the bay doors, 2 autocannon 20s, 2 LRM 20s firing out. That could be interesting, right? An archer with 2 autocannon 20s. This idea, again, overlap. So as your lance moves, now we set them up in a straight line. As your lance moves, their ranges, their weapons need to overlap. As a target comes into view, so let's say you're advancing forward and an opposing mech now comes into range, that means you can hit it, you can light it up with 2 or 3 or all 4 mechs, depending on the weapons and the range. This idea is redundancy in Battletech, right? You've got modifiers, range, movement, cover, concealment, all these different modifiers making it harder or easier to hit. So from that perspective, just looking at the 2 extremes, if you need higher numbers to hit, firing with 4 or 5 or 6 weapons, again, a lance overlapping, the different weapons of the mechs overlapping the target, this kind of imaginary hex bubble overlapping it, those increase your odds. Even with higher numbers to hit, maybe you score 1 or 2 hits. Where if you just fired 1 weapon, that's all. Second to that, if you can keep those modifiers down, I mean, you can always roll legendary, you never know. But if you can keep those modifiers down and you can overlap multiple mechs, then, hey, right there, that's huge. You're really going to score some hits. So working together, a lance, a battle group, whatever we're going to call it, I don't want things to get so separated that now one mech over on the right can fire at a target, but the mech on the left in my lance or battle group is at a range. Staying consistent, staying together. So the idea is anything that comes into that threat bubble, anything that comes into that projection, you're going to light up. you're going to hit it with the dice. Now, the dispersion of how close should you be or not, yeah, things might change a little bit depending on what you're playing. If there's artillery on the board, maybe I want to disperse a little bit. If there's air support, I want to be careful that I don't get hit with a bomb or a strafing run. So maybe I need to stagger myself. It's not static. It does adjust, but being careful not to fall for the trap of moving off. You know, the classic, like I've got a Jenner or I've got a really fast light mech. I'm advancing, my lance is engaging your lance, and now like I see a target over on the side, and I'm like, wow, I'll totally overwhelm it with the Jenner. You just peeled off that battle value from the support of your lance. There are ways to develop outflanking units, or it would be better to have a fast, low battle value light lance working together. Because remember, also working in a group, initiative is important. Being able to back each other up with initiative. If you peel off one mech and send it off on its own, and it goes up against, say, 2 or 3 other targets, even low battle value targets. Let's say you send off a medium mech to deal with an objective, whatever. I've got 3, low battle value, not really a major threat, hovers, with some short-range missiles, 6-packs. Initiative, when it comes time for initiative, you're there with that 1 over on that side of that table. I've got 3. You're going to be at a disadvantage. I'm going to possibly be able to outflank you. I'm going to get rear armor. I'm going to get superior position. I'm going to be able to stay out of your firing arc. Where with initiative, winning or losing, if I'm with a battle group, at least we're clustered. At least I'm going to increase my chances based, of course, what else is on the table for that to happen. So the best that you can. I won't say always, because there are times where things change, but stick together. Stay together. Be aware. Don't just put your 4 mechs down and kind of go solo and run off here and run off there and do this and do that. You're going to be picked apart. You're not going to have the overlap. You're not going to have the threat bubble. You're not going to have the redundancy. Or if you do score a lucky shot, you're not going to have the volume of dice to follow up and really punish or finish off that primary target.